to ears for the test Friday, Unit C. This is where you're filling in your notes, page 38. 14 questions, 70 points. I can solve multi-step equations, including literal equations. The literal equations, that's the y equals, you might have something like 2x plus 3. This is where you might have had the x equals 0.1 y minus 7, right? So literal equations also. Of those 10 questions, those are going to be 52 points on the test. Those 10 questions are 52 points. The second standard that we are looking at, I can determine the number of solutions. 4 questions, and I'm going to explain kind of in detail what these look like. So you should have spaces going down on yours, so I'm going to give you some more information on each of these. And this is going to be the remaining 18 points. Okay. So what do I mean by the multi-step solving? So when I looked at my notes, I had these filled in the top 2. And I just want you to see that when you're looking at my notes up here, so when I filled in what's on the test besides the 2 standards, what I did is I filled the rest of this in with kind of some more specifics for you, okay? So I'm going to give you some more specifics for what's on that test, okay? So the first thing when I look at that solving multi-step, what you had to do both on your last quiz and you'll do on this test is you needed to tell me, oh, what if it's a false statement, like 2 equals 3. You had to then tell me x was equal to no solution. Okay? So when you solve like those problems we did at the beginning, if you would have solved one of these 2 problems and it would have came out as 7 equals 2, you would have told me no solution. It was false. If it was true, hang on, like 2 equals 2, then you're going to tell me x equals all real numbers. But what if you have a question where it says, like we just got here, x equals negative 14/5? That is your answer. So you could have x equals negative 14/9, or x equals 3, or x equals 2. Okay? So there's 3 possibilities. 1 solution, right? All real numbers, or no solution when we look at them. We're going to take a look at, so you told me that part. The next thing that I'm going to do with this in these 10 questions, one of them is going to say, circle and explain the mistake. We're going to look at some like this today. Circle and explain the mistake. And I'll talk about that in just a minute. So those kind of go with that first standard. I'm going to ask you, and I'll show you some that we're going to look at in just a minute. The determining a solution. Okay, so now I'm kind of going down a little further. I might be a couple lines down as I'm looking at yours, right? So mine, again, I just kind of kept filling these in, but I was able to fill this in down below as I'm doing this. So what does it mean to determine the number of solutions for an equation? This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you 2 multiple choice questions. And when you look at those 2 multiple choice questions, I'm going to give you 3 equations. So one will be A, one will be B, one will be C. Okay? I'll give you 3 equations. With those 3 equations, and they'll be pretty simple ones, then I'm going to ask you to tell me this. One question might be, which has no solution? And then the next question, the second multiple choice question, might say, which has all real numbers? Now, it's probably not going to be all 3 of the choices, but you can choose more than one. So when you look at these multiple choice questions, you could choose only one, or you could have possibly two answers that fit that description, that have no solution or all real numbers. And here's the key thing that when I look at this, this is what I'm going to look at. So those three questions, you must have work with your selection. So if you select something, I need to see like the work behind it. Okay, so the work with your selection. And they're going to be pretty simple equations, but that's what I'm going to look for. Okay. The last thing that you are going to see with this determining a solution, the very last questions on the test is going to say this. It's going to say fill in the blank with a number. And when you tell me the number that you fill in the blank, it's usually going to be to make the statement true. That number that you give me, that's going to be 1 point. The other 3 points of that question is going to be you explaining why you chose the number. Why you chose that number, okay? So when what number, right? And then explain. What number would make this a no solution? Someone want to give me a number that they think would work? Raise your hand. What do you think, Max?
1/5.
1/5. Could someone else have had something different? Someone could have had 7. Did someone have 7?
No.
7's the only one you can't choose, right? Because 7 would make it true. Can you pick any other number besides 7? Yes. You could pick -7. You could pick 2. You could pick 20. So everyone could pick anything, but this number cannot be equal to 7. And your explanation would be, if it is 7, then it's a true statement and it's all real numbers, right? So when you look at that, that's kind of what that part of the test is going to look like. Okay, questions? All right, so we want to look at the circling and finding mistakes. So on your whiteboard that you have, if you have anything on there, please erase. Okay. Please erase, and we are going to kind of keep like a little scoreboard at the top of that. Like if you got it right, you'll put a check mark. If you got it wrong, you'll put a check mark, and if you got it right, you'll put like a star. Okay, so when I'm walking around, I'm going to either see a star or a check mark, right? That's going to kind of give me an idea of how you're doing on this, okay? My window people are going to look over here, okay? So this is window, we're going to do Lady Gaga. People in the middle, you're going to write down Drake's, okay? This is my middle people. Or you're going to look at it. And Rihanna, you're my people by the door, okay? So this is going to be like on the test, where I'm going to give you a problem, and I'm going to say, hey, I don't think, maybe one of these people did it right, but maybe they all did it right. So determine who was correct. So if in your row, and you can talk to anyone in your row as you are working on this, okay? I want you to tell me, oh, did they solve it correctly? So determine which student was correct. If your student was incorrect, you need to like circle the answer, okay? Identify the error. So you circle it, and then you're going to correct it, okay? So I'm going to leave this up here for